Daniel Cooper lit the backyard candles with shaking hands, the engraved necklace in his pocket already beginning to burn. The flame caught the wick, casting dancing shadows across the meticulously arranged table. Everything had to be perfect for their 10th anniversary. The fairy lights strung between the oak trees, the wine breathing at the proper temperature, the playlist cued to start with their wedding song. He'd spent weeks planning this evening, but something gnawed at his gut, a splinter of unease that made his architect's mind race through blueprints of disaster. Claire emerged from the house wearing the red dress, the one she'd worn the night they conceived Emma, their first child, the one she claimed to have thrown out years ago after spilling wine on it. I remember watching her toss it in the donation bag, Daniel thought, his pulse quickening. The silk clung to her curves exactly as it had that night 11 years ago, when she'd whispered promises against his ear about forever. "You look beautiful," he said, pulling out her chair. The words tasted like ash. Claire smiled, but her eyes held that distant quality he'd noticed more often lately. "You always say that." She settled into her seat, immediately reaching for her phone. "Sorry, work's been crazy today." Daniel poured the wine, a bottle of the same vintage they'd shared on their honeymoon. Claire's phone buzzed against the table. The screen lit up with a message preview from Nate. "Can't wait to taste you again tomorrow night. Same hotel?" The wine glass trembled in Daniel's grip. Claire's fingers moved with practiced speed, flipping the phone face down before reaching for her napkin. Her smile never wavered. "Cheers," she said, raising her glass. "To 10 years." Daniel lifted his own glass, watching Claire's face in the candlelight. 10 years of building a life together. 10 years of trust, sacrifice, and quiet devotion. 10 years of believing she was his partner in constructing something beautiful and lasting. The architect in him had always seen their marriage as his greatest project. Foundation solid, framework sturdy, each room carefully designed for the life they'd share. But foundations could crack, and when they did, the entire structure came down. "To 10 years," he echoed, taking a sip that burned his throat. Claire's phone buzzed again, then again. She kept it face down, but Daniel caught the reflection of light each time. The messages kept coming throughout dinner, a steady pulse of notifications that made Claire's jaw tighten almost imperceptibly. I sacrificed everything for her, Daniel thought, watching her fingers drum against the table. When her design firm struggled, he'd worked 80-hour weeks to keep them afloat. When she wanted the house in Riverside Heights, he'd taken on 3 extra projects to afford the down payment. When she'd struggled with postpartum depression after Tommy's birth, he'd been the one holding her together at 3 in the morning. "Remember our first apartment?" Daniel asked, testing. "That tiny place above the bakery?" Claire's attention was split, her gaze flickering toward the phone every few seconds. "You said it smelled like heaven every morning. Fresh bread and coffee." "It was sweet," she said absently. It had been cinnamon rolls, not bread, and she'd hated the smell, complained it made her nauseous. The memory was seared into his brain because they'd fought about it for weeks before finding their next place. Daniel set down his fork, the sound sharp against the porcelain. His mind began shifting into the methodical mode that had made him successful, analyzing, planning, calculating. If Claire was lying about small things, what else had been constructed on false blueprints? "I'll be right back," he said, standing. "Need to check on dessert." Inside the house, Daniel's hands moved with mechanical precision. He pulled out his phone and opened the voice recorder app. Then he slipped into their bedroom, where Claire's purse sat on the dresser. Her backup phone, the old iPhone she claimed was broken, rested at the bottom beneath a tangle of receipts. It wasn't broken. The screen flared to life at his touch. 27 unread messages from Nate. Daniel's thumb hovered over the notification, his heart hammering against his ribs. Every instinct screamed at him to stop, to trust, to believe there was an explanation. But the architect in him needed to see the foundation's true condition before the collapse. He opened the messages. "Hotel room is ready. Bring that thing you did last time. Your husband still clueless? Poor bastard. Can't believe he's paying for dinner while I'm planning to be intimate with his wife tomorrow." Daniel's vision blurred. The phone slipped in his sweating palms as he scrolled up, revealing weeks of exchanges. Months. The dates stretched back to last Christmas, their family Christmas, where Claire had played the perfect wife and mother while exchanging explicit photos with another man. A group chat labeled Operation Claire featured her sisters. The messages made his blood freeze. Has he signed the refinancing papers yet? Not yet. Playing the grateful wife a little longer. Once the beach house is leveraged, you file. Clean him out completely. He's so boring. At least Nate knows how to make me feel alive. Daniel's legs gave out. He sank onto the edge of the bed, staring at the screen as his entire world reformed itself around this new blueprint. Claire hadn't just betrayed him. She'd been planning his destruction. The woman he'd loved, protected, and built a life with had been systematically dismantling everything while he painted their life in romantic fairy lights. His hands moved without conscious thought, screenshotting everything. The photos Claire had sent, the videos, the financial discussions, the mocking messages about his pathetic attempts at romance. He actually thinks tonight's dinner means something. Bought me some tacky necklace. The tacky necklace. The one burning a hole in his pocket, engraved with words that now felt like a joke. Forever begins with you. Daniel stood, his movements controlled despite the inferno raging in his chest. He placed the phone back exactly where he'd found it, beneath the receipts and lip gloss tubes. Then he walked to their bathroom mirror and practiced his smile. The man looking back at him was a stranger, someone who'd just learned that love was a construction material that could be weaponized. When he returned to the backyard, Claire was texting openly, her fingers flying over the screen of her primary phone. "Everything okay?" Daniel asked, his voice steady. "Just work drama." Claire's laugh sounded forced. "You know how it is." "I do," Daniel said, settling back into his chair. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the necklace box. "I have something for you." Claire's eyes lit up. With guilt or anticipation, he couldn't tell anymore. "Daniel, you didn't have to. 10 years deserves something special." She opened the box, and her smile looked genuine for the first time all evening. "It's beautiful. Thank you." As she fastened the chain around her neck, Daniel watched her fingers work the clasp. Those same fingers that had typed messages mocking him, that had sent intimate photos to another man, that had planned his financial ruin with the casual efficiency of an accountant. "Forever begins with you," Claire read aloud, touching the pendant. "Yes," Daniel said, raising his wine glass again. "It certainly does." The candlelight flickered between them, casting long shadows across the table. In those shadows, Daniel began sketching the blueprints for Claire's destruction. He'd spent 10 years building their life together with love, trust, and sacrifice. He'd spend the next 3 months tearing it down with precision. Daniel's coffee had gone cold an hour ago, but he barely noticed. The forensic IT specialist, a thin man named Marcus with wire-rimmed glasses, hunched over Claire's laptop in Daniel's home office, his fingers flying across the keyboard with surgical precision. "Your wife was careful," Marcus said, not looking up from the screen, "but not careful enough. Most people think deleting files actually removes them." Daniel stood behind Marcus's chair, watching lines of code scroll past. His architect's mind appreciated the methodical approach. Foundation first, then framework, then the devastating details that would bring everything down. "Here we go." Marcus's voice carried a note of discovery. "Hidden partition on the hard drive. Looks like she's been using it for personal files." The first video file opened, and Daniel's stomach lurched. Claire, in their bed, the bed where he'd held her through nightmares, where they'd whispered about growing old together, writhing beneath two men he didn't recognize. The timestamp showed their anniversary weekend last year, while he'd been downstairs making her favorite breakfast, believing she was sleeping off a headache. The credit card charges match up, Marcus continued, opening another window. Hotel room, dinner for 3, even charge champagne to your account. She's been billing these encounters to your cards for months. Daniel gripped the back of Marcus's chair. Claire hadn't just betrayed him. She'd made him pay for it. Every romantic dinner he'd thought they shared while she claimed to be working late had been funded by his own money, his own trust. There's more, Marcus said softly. Financial records show systematic withdrawals from your business account. Small amounts, but consistent. She's been skimming for over a year. The numbers on the screen blurred together. $23,000. Money Daniel had earned through 16-hour days and weekend projects. Money he'd saved for Tommy's college fund and Emma's art classes. Claire had been stealing their children's future to fund her affairs. I need copies of everything, Daniel said, his voice steady despite the rage clawing at his chest. While Marcus worked, Daniel walked to the window overlooking their driveway. Claire's Mercedes sat in its usual spot, paid for with the overtime he'd worked last Christmas. She was at the spa with her sisters, a gift he'd given her just yesterday, believing she deserved relaxation after her stressful week at work. His phone buzzed with a text from Claire. Having amazing time. Love you. The exclamation points felt like knives. Daniel deleted the message without responding and dialed his accountant. Linda, it's Daniel Cooper. I need you to freeze our business accounts immediately. Linda's voice carried concern. Is everything all right? Claire was just here yesterday asking about the quarterly statements. Daniel's blood chilled. What did she want to know? Standard stuff. Cash flow, projected earnings for the year. She seemed particularly interested in the revenue from your Portland project. The Portland project. The biggest contract Daniel had ever landed, worth nearly $200,000 in fees. Claire had celebrated with champagne that night, toasting his success with what he'd thought was genuine pride. She'd been calculating her cut. Freeze everything, Daniel repeated. And Linda? If Claire comes back, you don't discuss our finances with her anymore. She's no longer authorized. Daniel, I'll explain later. Just do it. Please. An hour later, Daniel sat in his lawyer's office with a flash drive containing Claire's digital life. Jonathan Reeves, a silver-haired man who'd handled Daniel's business contracts for 5 years, reviewed the evidence with the detached efficiency of a coroner examining a corpse. This is comprehensive, Jonathan said finally. The financial fraud alone is enough for criminal charges. The affair evidence supports emotional distress claims, and this group chat with her sisters. He whistled low. Conspiracy to commit fraud. They documented their entire plan. Daniel leaned forward. I want her destroyed, Jonathan. Legally, financially, professionally. I want her to understand what it feels like to have everything stolen. The restraining order will be approved within hours. We'll cite the financial deception and emotional abuse. The asset freeze is already in place. She won't be able to access any joint accounts. What about her job? Jonathan's smile was sharp. Her company has a strict ethics policy regarding financial misconduct. They'll want to distance themselves quickly once they see this evidence. While they spoke, Daniel's phone buzzed with increasingly frantic messages from Claire. Why isn't my card working? Daniel, call me. Something's wrong with our accounts. This isn't funny. I'm stuck at the spa with no way to pay. Daniel turned the phone face down and looked at Jonathan. How long before she realizes what's happening? Based on these messages, I'd say she already knows something's wrong. But the full scope? Jonathan gathered the documents into a neat pile. She won't understand until it's too late. That evening, Daniel stood in their bedroom, watching the moving crew pack Claire's belongings into boxes. Every photograph of them together, every piece of jewelry he'd given her, every reminder of their shared life disappeared into cardboard containers. The locksmith would arrive in an hour to change all the deadbolts. His phone rang. Claire's contact photo, a smiling picture from their honeymoon, filled the screen. Daniel let it go to voicemail. The message she left was pure panic. "Daniel, what the hell is happening? My cards don't work. I can't get into our accounts, and Mom just called saying you sent her some kind of package. Please call me back. This isn't funny anymore." Daniel deleted the voicemail and opened his laptop. Marcus had provided him with Nate's full information. Nathan Pierce, 34, married with 2 young children, living in Oakwood Heights. His wife Jessica was a pediatric nurse who posted cheerful family photos on Facebook every Sunday. Daniel created an anonymous email account and began typing. "Mrs. Pierce, I'm sorry to be the bearer of difficult news, but your husband has been having an affair with a married woman named Claire Cooper. I've attached evidence that I believe you have a right to see. I hope you'll find the strength to protect yourself and your children." He attached the photos, videos, and message threads showing Nate and Claire's relationship. Every crude exchange, every mocking reference to their respective spouses, every detail of their ongoing betrayal. As Daniel hit send, his phone buzzed with another call from Claire. This time he answered. "Daniel, thank God. Something's wrong with our—" "I know about Nate." Silence stretched between them like a chasm. "I know about the hotels, the credit card charges, the money you've been stealing from our business account. I know about your plan with your sisters to clean me out after the refinancing." "Daniel, let me explain. I know you've been lying to me for over a year while I worked myself to death trying to give you everything you wanted." Claire's voice cracked. "Where are you? I'm at the house, but my key doesn't work. The locks have been changed. You're not welcome here anymore." "You can't do this. This is my house too." "Actually, I can. Check your email for the restraining order. And Claire, your boss will be getting some interesting reading material first thing Monday morning." Daniel hung up and blocked her number. Through the bedroom window, he could see Claire's Mercedes in the driveway, engine running. She sat behind the wheel, probably calling her sisters, trying to understand how her perfect plan had crumbled so quickly. Daniel walked downstairs and poured himself a scotch. Tomorrow, Nate's wife would wake up to the truth about her marriage. Claire's employer would receive evidence of her fraud. The restraining order would be served by police officers who wouldn't care about her tears or explanations. The house felt different without Claire's belongings, cleaner somehow, like the air itself had been purified. Daniel raised his glass in a silent toast to the woman who'd taught him that love was just another construction material and that some buildings were meant to be demolished. Claire stood in her parents' driveway at 6 in the morning, her hair unwashed and her hands shaking as she rang the doorbell for the 3rd time. She'd spent the night in her car after the police escorted her from her own property, after Daniel's restraining order made her a stranger to her own life. The door opened, but instead of her mother's usual warm greeting, Claire faced a wall of cold silence. Her mother's eyes were red-rimmed, her mouth set in a tight line that Claire had never seen before. "Mom, thank God. Daniel's lost his mind. He's—" "We know." Her mother's voice was barely above a whisper. "We've seen everything." Claire's stomach dropped. "What do you mean?" Her mother stepped aside, revealing Claire's father standing in the hallway with his back turned to the door. In her mother's trembling hand was a flash drive, the same model Daniel used for his architectural files. "He sent us copies, Claire. Everything. The messages, the photos, the—" Her mother's voice broke. "How could you do this to him? To us? To your children?" Claire pushed past her mother into the house, her legs unsteady. "It's not what it looks like. Daniel's twisting everything, making it seem worse than—" We read the messages between you and your sisters." Her father's voice cut through her protests without him turning around. "Planning to destroy him financially, mocking him while he worked himself sick trying to provide for you." The flash drive felt like evidence of murder as her mother pressed it into Claire's palm. Claire's fingers closed around the cold metal, and she knew with horrible certainty that her parents had seen everything. Every crude message with Nate, every calculation about Daniel's assets, every joke about her boring husband who'd loved her unconditionally for 10 years. "Daddy, please." "Don't." He finally turned, and Claire saw her own features reflected in his face, but twisted with disgust. "I can't even look at you right now." Her sisters Julie and Rebecca arrived an hour later, their faces flushed with rage. Claire had expected solidarity, support, a united front against Daniel's overreaction. Instead, Julie threw her purse onto the kitchen table with enough force to rattle the salt and pepper shakers. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" Julie's voice pitched high with panic. "That group chat. Daniel sent it to everyone, our employers, our friends, our kids' schools." Claire's mouth went dry. "He wouldn't." "He did." Rebecca's usually perfect composure had cracked, leaving her makeup smeared and her voice raw. "My boss called me at 5 this morning asking if I was part of a conspiracy to defraud someone. My marriage counselor canceled our appointment because she says there's a conflict of interest now." "This is insane," Claire said, but her voice sounded hollow even to herself. "We were just talking. It's not like we actually did anything illegal." Julie laughed, a sharp sound with no humor. "We documented evidence of fraud, Claire, in writing, with timestamps, and now everyone we know has seen it." The reality began settling over Claire like ice water. Daniel hadn't just exposed her affair, he'd systematically destroyed the lives of everyone who'd helped her plan his destruction. Her sisters, who'd encouraged her relationship with Nate and helped calculate the best timing for maximum financial damage, were now facing their own reckonings. Claire's phone rang. Work. She'd been dreading this call since yesterday, but now the sight of her boss's name on the screen made her physically ill. "Claire, we need you to come in immediately." Richard's voice carried none of its usual warmth. "HR wants to discuss some allegations that have been brought to our attention." "What kind of allegations?" "Financial misconduct, conflict of interest. We'll discuss it when you get here." The line went dead. Claire stared at the phone, understanding that her career, the job she'd spent 8 years building, was about to evaporate. At Morrison & Associates, Claire sat across from HR Director Patricia Kelly and her own boss Richard, feeling like a defendant at trial. The conference room table was covered with printouts, screenshots of her messages, bank records, credit card statements. "We've reviewed the evidence provided by Mr. Cooper's legal team," Patricia said, her voice professionally neutral. "The accusations are serious, using company resources for personal matters, fraudulent expense reports, and conducting extramarital affairs during work hours." "I never used company resources for hotel charges billed to your corporate card." Patricia slid a statement across the table. "Restaurants during claimed client meetings where no client was present. Personal calls during work hours to coordinate these meetings." Claire's lies unraveled as Patricia read each charge. The afternoon she'd claimed to be visiting the Johnson construction site while actually meeting Nate at the Marriott. The client dinner, that was really a threesome, charged to her expense account. The fake emergency calls that pulled her away from important meetings. "We're suspending you pending a full investigation," Richard said, unable to meet her eyes. "Security will escort you out." Walking through the office with a security guard felt like a perp walk. Her colleagues pretended to focus on their computers, but Claire caught their sideways glances, their whispered conversations that stopped when she passed. By evening, she knew, everyone would know. The story would spread through their professional network like wildfire. That night, Claire sat in a motel room paid for with the last credit card Daniel hadn't frozen, scrolling through Facebook on her phone. Nate's wife, Jessica, had posted a statement that made Claire's blood freeze. "Sometimes people show you exactly who they are, and you have to believe them. My husband has been having an affair with a married woman who helped him betray both our families. I'm sharing this not for sympathy, but so other women can recognize the signs and protect themselves." The post included photos, screenshots of Nate's messages, hotel receipts, even photos Claire had sent him. Her face was clearly visible in several images. Jessica had tagged Claire's Facebook profile, ensuring that everyone in their mutual network would see. Within hours, the post had been shared 400 times. The comments were brutal. "What kind of woman destroys two families for some cheap thrills? I know her. Always acted like she was better than everyone. Poor Daniel. He deserves so much better. Karma's a bitch." Claire created a new Facebook account, but it didn't matter. Screenshots of the original post circulated on local community boards, neighborhood groups, even her children's school parent pages. Her phone buzzed constantly with notifications, former friends calling her a homewrecker, acquaintances expressing shock and disappointment, strangers who'd somehow found her number leaving voicemails filled with judgment and rage. She turned the phone off and sat in the motel room's single chair, staring at her reflection in the black TV screen. This morning she'd been Claire Cooper, respected architect, loving mother, woman with a secret. Tonight she was a cautionary tale, a public scandal, a symbol of everything wrong with modern marriage. And Daniel, methodical, careful Daniel, had orchestrated every moment of her destruction with the same precision he brought to his blueprints. Claire's hands shook as she dialed Daniel's number for the 15th time that week, each call going straight to voicemail. She'd tried his office, his email, even contacted their mutual friends, but Daniel had vanished from her life as completely as if he'd never existed. Finally, she broke down and called his sister Amy, the only family member who might show her mercy. "Amy, it's Claire. Please, I need to talk to Daniel. I know I made mistakes, but..." "Mistakes?" Amy's voice was ice. "Claire, I've seen the evidence. Those weren't mistakes. They were calculated choices. I can explain everything. If Daniel would just listen. He doesn't want to hear from you. Ever. And honestly, after what you put him through, I don't blame him." Claire's voice cracked. "I love him. I know I screwed up, but I love him and I can make this right. Please, just tell him." "Tell him what? That you're sorry you got caught? That you regret destroying your family for some meaningless affair?" Amy's laugh was bitter. "Save it, Claire. Daniel's moved on, and you should too." The line went dead. Claire stared at her phone in the motel room that had become her entire world. 3 weeks since her life imploded, and she was living off room service and the diminishing balance on her one remaining credit card. Her resignation from Morrison and Associates had been quietly accepted, no questions asked. Her professional reputation was radioactive. Even temp agencies hung up when they Googled her name. That evening, her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "You were my biggest mistake and my most satisfying project." Claire's phone slipped from her fingers, clattering onto the stained carpet. Daniel's words hit her like physical blows, each syllable designed to inflict maximum damage. A project. 10 years of marriage, 2 children, a shared life, all reduced to an architectural assignment that he'd completed and abandoned. She tried calling the number back, but it was already disconnected. Miles away, Daniel sat on the deck of his new beach house, watching the sun set over Lake Michigan. The property was officially owned by his sister Amy, a legal maneuver that protected it from any future claims Claire might attempt. The house was smaller than their old place, but infinitely more peaceful. No shadows of betrayal lurked in these rooms. No memories of lies shared over breakfast. His phone rang, his business line. A potential client interested in designing a summer home. Daniel Cooper Architecture. "Mr. Cooper, I'm calling about your firm. We've heard wonderful things about your work and your integrity. Daniel smiled. His reputation in the architectural community had actually grown stronger after Claire's scandal broke. Clients admired his grace under pressure, his refusal to engage in public mudslinging. Word spread that Daniel Cooper was a man who handled adversity with class, who turned personal devastation into professional fuel. "I'd be happy to discuss your project," Daniel said, pulling out his tablet to schedule the consultation. Business was booming. 3 major contracts signed in the past month, a waiting list of clients who specifically requested him, and inquiries from developers who wanted to work with the architect who rebuilt his life. The beach house served as both home and office, its clean lines and ocean views reflecting the new Daniel, streamlined, focused, unburdened by the weight of loving someone who'd never deserved it. The divorce papers had arrived the previous week. Claire's signature looked shaky, desperate, but legally binding. She'd contested nothing, accepted nothing, left with nothing. The fraud evidence made any claims to their shared assets impossible. Even their children, Emma and Tommy, had chosen to stay with their father after learning the truth about their mother's betrayal. "She hurt you, Dad," Emma had said with the blunt honesty of a 12-year-old. "She hurt all of us." Now they were building a new life together, the 3 of them. Emma was painting again, her art reflecting the peace that had settled over their small family. Tommy had joined the local baseball team, making friends with kids who didn't know or care about the scandal that had dominated their old neighborhood's gossip mill. Daniel's phone buzzed with a text from Amy. "Saw Claire at the grocery store today. She looks terrible. Hollow, like a ghost." He deleted the message without responding. Claire's current condition was irrelevant to his future. That night, as he did every year on their former anniversary, Daniel prepared a small package. Inside was a flash drive containing a single file. This year, a photo of Claire taken from a local news website. She'd been caught in the background of a story about economic hardship, standing in line at a social services office. Her hair was limp, her clothes ill-fitting, her face gaunt with stress and regret. The accompanying note was brief. Year 3. Still counting. He mailed the package anonymously, using a different post office each time, ensuring Claire would receive her annual reminder of consequences. Not out of cruelty, but out of completeness. An architect's mind required that every project reach its natural conclusion. In his study, Daniel opened the bottom drawer of his desk and pulled out a small jewelry box. Inside was the necklace he'd planned to give Claire that final anniversary night, the one engraved with "Forever begins with you." Beside it lay the letter he'd written but never sent, pages of his thoughts about their future, his dreams for growing old together, his gratitude for the love they'd shared. Both items were relics now, museum pieces from a life that had never really existed. Claire's version of their marriage had been performance art, a decade-long con designed to extract maximum value from his devotion. The real woman had been planning his destruction, while he'd been planning their forever. Daniel closed the box and returned it to the drawer. Tomorrow he had 3 client meetings, a site visit for the Morrison project, the irony of the name wasn't lost on him, and dinner with a woman named Sarah whom Amy had introduced him to. Sarah was a widow, a teacher, someone who understood loss and appreciated honesty, someone who might be worthy of the trust Claire had shattered. The house settled around him as evening deepened, the sound of waves against the shore replacing the silence that had once felt so oppressive. Daniel poured himself a glass of wine, a good vintage, one he'd never shared with anyone who'd mock his taste or calculate its cost, and stepped back onto the deck. The moon cast silver paths across the water, each ripple catching light before disappearing into darkness. Somewhere in the city, Claire was probably lying awake in whatever temporary housing she'd managed to secure, wondering how her perfect plan had become her perfect destruction. But her sleepless nights were no longer his concern. Daniel raised his glass to the night sky, to the stars that looked exactly the same as they had during his marriage but somehow seemed brighter now. 10 years, Claire, he said quietly, his words carried away by the lake breeze. But the last 3 months? That's the only part I'll remember. The waves continued their eternal rhythm against the shore, washing clean the sand with each cycle, leaving behind a surface unmarked by whatever had come before. Daniel finished his wine and went inside, ready to sleep the peaceful sleep of a man who'd built his revenge as carefully as he'd once built his love, and had finally found the blueprints for happiness. And that's the end of today's story. If you enjoyed it, please give this video a thumbs up and drop a comment below. Your support helps the algorithm push my content further. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It really helps me keep creating more stories for you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.